Chapter 1. The Hidden Traps of Failure. One paragraph version. Why do most people fail while only a handful succeed? Napoleon Hill, the legendary author of Think and Grow Rich, devoted his life to answering this question. After studying over 500 of the most successful men and women of his time, including Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and Alexander Graham Bell, Hill discovered that failure is rarely accidental. It is not fate. It is not bad luck. It is not something written in the stars, but rather the result of specific patterns of thought and behavior that silently sabotage people from within. The first trap is weak desire, because without a burning ambition, no amount of talent or opportunity can sustain progress. Most people only wish for wealth or success vaguely and half-heartedly, and the moment obstacles appear, they quit. While great achievers like Thomas Edison kept going despite thousands of failed attempts because their desire was unbreakable. The second trap is procrastination, which Hill called the thief of time, the silent enemy that convinces people to wait for the perfect moment that never arrives. And while they delay, opportunities slip away forever. Procrastination is rooted in fear and indecision, but successful people act quickly and confidently, knowing that progress begins with a single bold step. Closely tied to this is indecision itself, another major cause of failure, because most people cannot make up their minds about what they want and drift aimlessly, starting projects but quitting halfway, while the great achievers Hill studied, such as Henry Ford, made decisions quickly and stuck to them with determination, understanding that the only truly wrong choice is making no choice at all. Perhaps the most powerful trap, however, is fear, which Hill identified in 6 forms: fear of poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death. These fears dominate millions of lives, paralyzing the mind, clouding judgment, and killing ambition. But successful people are not fearless. They simply learn to act in spite of fear, turning it into fuel for growth. The truth, Hill argued, is that failure itself is never permanent, but most people treat it as final defeat. In reality, every failure carries the seed of equal or greater success if we choose to learn from it, as Edison did when he said he had not failed, but only found 10,000 ways that would not work. The difference between those who fail permanently and those who ultimately succeed lies in their response to failure. The majority quit, while the minority use failure as feedback and keep moving forward. When we put it all together, the hidden traps of weak desire, procrastination, indecision, and fear form the invisible chains that hold most people back. While those who escape these chains by developing burning desire, decisive action, persistence, and faith in themselves rise to success. Napoleon Hill's message is clear. Success does not require luck or genius, but the awareness to recognize these traps and the courage to break free. Because most people fail by surrendering to these forces, while only a few succeed by mastering them. And to truly understand this difference, we must look even deeper into the psychology that drives human behavior, the influences of environment, habits, and beliefs, which is where our exploration continues in the next chapter. Chapter 2, The Psychology of Success versus Failure, one paragraph version. If the hidden traps we explored earlier, weak desire, procrastination, indecision, and fear, are the starting points of failure, then the psychology that shapes our environment, habits, and inner discipline becomes the battlefield where success and failure are ultimately decided. Napoleon Hill observed that many people fail not simply because of external challenges, but because they allow their surroundings and their own mindsets to control them in destructive ways, while only a few consciously build the mental and social structures that push them towards success. One of the greatest psychological factors of failure is environment. The people you spend time with influence your thoughts, beliefs, and actions more than you realize, and those who surround themselves with negativity, doubt, and mediocrity soon adopt the same attitudes, which in turn destroy ambition. Hill often repeated that minds are contagious, and if you are constantly exposed to people who complain, criticize, and settle for less, then your subconscious will mirror that energy. Most people never escape this trap because they are afraid of leaving familiar circles. But the successful minority carefully select their associations, building relationships with those who inspire, challenge, and uplift them. Another psychological reason most people fail is lack of persistence, which Hill described as one of the most crucial qualities of success. Too many give up at the first sign of resistance, quitting when things get difficult instead of pushing through. And they rationalize this by saying the timing was wrong or the opportunity was not meant for them. But the truth is that persistence separates dreamers from achievers because success often comes just one step beyond the point where others stop. Consider entrepreneurs, inventors, or athletes. Most of them faced repeated failures, bankruptcies, rejections, or defeats, yet they persisted, while the average person abandoned the journey long before victory was possible. Closely linked to persistence is self-discipline, another cornerstone of Napoleon Hill's philosophy. And its absence is one of the most common reasons people fail. Without the ability to control impulses, manage time, and direct energy toward definite goals, people drift aimlessly, distracted by pleasure, entertainment, or comfort, sacrificing long-term success for short-term gratification. Hill believed that self-discipline is the bridge between desire and achievement, for even strong desire cannot bear fruit if it is not supported by consistent, controlled action. Unfortunately, most people lack this discipline, and instead of mastering their habits, they become slaves to them. Bad habits, oversleeping, wasting time, overindulging, making excuses, slowly erode potential until nothing remains. And while these habits seem small in the moment, repeated daily, they form an invisible prison that guarantees failure. Another deep psychological trap is the victim mentality, the tendency to make excuses and blame circumstances, luck, or other people for one's lack of success. Hill emphasized that excuses are the language of failure, and most people are fluent in them, saying they are too old, too young, too uneducated, too unlucky, or too poor. But in reality, these are shields to protect the ego from facing the truth, that success is possible, but requires sacrifice, responsibility, and change. Hill's interviews with successful people revealed the opposite mindset. Instead of excuses, they embraced accountability, taking full ownership of their results and seeing every obstacle as a chance to grow. This psychological shift is rare, which is why success is rare. Another cause of failure that Hill identified lies in the lack of a definite purpose. Although this principle is expanded in greater detail later, its absence is already visible here, because most people wander through life without clarity, chasing one thing today and another tomorrow, influenced by trends, opinions, or immediate pleasures, but never committing to a single meaningful direction. And as a result, they scatter their energy so widely that nothing significant is ever achieved. In contrast, those few who succeed harness the power of focus, deciding on one clear goal and aligning all of their decisions, habits, and actions toward it. Psychologically, this gives them an internal compass that prevents them from being swayed by distractions, criticism, or temporary setbacks. It is also worth noting that much of failure comes from the invisible influence of thought itself. Hill believed deeply in the principle that thoughts become things, meaning that whatever dominates your mind eventually shapes your reality. Most people allow negative thoughts, doubt, fear, resentment, envy to take root in their subconscious, and these thoughts manifest in actions that sabotage progress, while successful people cultivate positive and success-oriented thinking, programming their subconscious with faith, confidence, and determination until those qualities become natural. This does not mean ignoring reality, but rather choosing to interpret reality through a lens of possibility instead of limitation. Another psychological difference between failure and success lies in how people respond to criticism and rejection. The majority cannot bear rejection and allow it to destroy their confidence. They give up because someone laughed at their idea, doubted their abilities, or criticized their efforts. Hill found this pattern over and over again. Criticism kills more dreams than actual failure ever does. Yet those who succeed are often criticized the most, at least in the beginning, because their vision challenges the comfort zones of others, and they learn to accept criticism as proof that they are on the path of originality. To them, rejection is not the end, but feedback, fuel for improvement, and evidence that they are daring to stand out where most conform. All these psychological patterns, environment, persistence, self-discipline, habits, excuses, lack of purpose, negative thinking, and sensitivity to criticism combine to form a system of failure that traps the majority of humanity. The tragedy is that most people do not even realize these forces are controlling them. They believe success is about luck, timing, or connections, when in truth, it is about mastering the mind and choosing the right psychological attitudes daily. Napoleon Hill's wisdom shows us that while failure is common, it is not inevitable. It is the natural result of certain mental patterns, and anyone who wishes to break free must consciously reverse these patterns, replacing excuses with responsibility, fear with courage, procrastination with action, distraction with discipline, and negative associations with empowering ones. Only then does success become a predictable outcome rather than a rare accident. And so, as we leave behind this layer of the psychology of failure, we move toward the deeper strategies that Hill believed could guarantee success for anyone willing to apply them. The practical blueprint that transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. Chapter 3, The Blueprint to Succeed, Where Most Fail, one paragraph version. Having uncovered the hidden traps of failure and the psychological forces that separate success from mediocrity, we now arrive at the most important part of Napoleon Hill's teachings, the practical blueprint that allows the few to rise where most people fall. Hill's central discovery, after decades of studying the most powerful and accomplished men and women of his era, was that success is not a mystery. It is the result of specific principles applied with discipline, and anyone willing to embrace them can move from failure to achievement. The first cornerstone of this blueprint is the power of definite purpose. Hill declared that the number one reason most people fail is that they lack a clear, specific goal, and therefore they drift through life like ships without a compass, constantly changing direction, following trends, or reacting to circumstances instead of deliberately creating their future. In contrast, those who succeed know exactly what they want. They write it down, they visualize it, and they align all their actions toward it. A definite purpose gives life meaning and direction, and without it, energy is scattered across distractions that yield nothing. Once a definite purpose is established, the next step is decision-making mastery, because every life is shaped by the decisions we make daily. And Hill emphasized that successful people make decisions quickly and firmly, while unsuccessful people delay, hesitate, and change their minds often. This decisiveness builds momentum, and momentum builds results, because opportunities come to those who are ready to act, not those who endlessly analyze and doubt. The blueprint also requires faith and belief in oneself, for without confidence, the journey collapses at the first sign of difficulty. Hill described faith as a state of mind that can be developed through affirmation, visualization, and repetition until the subconscious accepts it as reality. And once belief is internalized, it transforms behavior and draws circumstances in harmony with the goal. Yet Hill also warned that no one achieves greatness entirely alone, which is why the principle of the mastermind is vital in this blueprint. A mastermind group is the alliance of two or more minds working together in harmony toward a definite purpose. And Hill found that all great fortunes and achievements were the result of cooperative effort rather than isolated genius. Most people fail because they isolate themselves or surround themselves with weak influences. But the few who succeed deliberately form alliances with those who share their vision, who challenge them to grow, and who bring resources, insights, and support that amplify their potential. Another crucial part of the blueprint is learning to turn failure into stepping stones. Unlike the majority, who treat failure as a permanent defeat, the successful minority sees it as feedback, a lesson disguised as pain. And by analyzing mistakes, they extract wisdom that others miss, thereby transforming every setback into fuel for future growth. Hill argued that temporary defeat should never be confused with permanent failure, and that persistence through setbacks is often the final test before success reveals itself. Self-discipline also appears again here, not merely as a shield against failure, but as the engine that drives consistent effort. Discipline is what allows a person to wake up early, to keep promises to themselves, to resist distractions, and to maintain focus day after day until results appear. Without discipline, even the best plans fall apart. But with discipline, even ordinary people can achieve extraordinary results. Another element of Hill's blueprint is the control of the mind through autosuggestion, which is the process of feeding your subconscious with positive, success-oriented thoughts until they shape your behavior automatically. This technique, practiced daily, turns desires into beliefs and beliefs into actions. And over time, it rewires the mind to operate on confidence and purpose instead of fear and doubt. Hill also stressed the importance of imagination, the workshop of the mind, where new ideas are born and where creative vision turns into practical achievement. Those who succeed learn to combine imagination with action, dreaming big, but also executing their ideas step by step, while those who fail either never dream at all or dream without action, which is nothing more than fantasy. Another vital piece of the blueprint is organized planning, because desire alone is not enough. Without a plan, dreams remain vague. Successful people translate their goals into concrete strategies with timelines, steps, and measurable actions, while those who fail rely on wishful thinking. Yet plans will not always work, which is why flexibility is key. Hill advised to keep adjusting methods without ever abandoning the purpose, because while methods may fail, persistence toward the goal ensures eventual success. Alongside planning, Hill emphasized specialized knowledge, because general knowledge alone rarely produces wealth or achievement. Those who rise above the average constantly learn, adapt, and master specific skills that make them valuable, while most people stop learning after school and stagnate, failing to realize that in a changing world, growth is the only security. Another hidden part of the blueprint is the ability to control the 6 basic fears he identified earlier: poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death, because until these fears are mastered, they will sabotage progress. Successful people acknowledge these fears but act anyway, developing courage through repeated effort until fear loses its power. And finally, Hill's blueprint insists on persistence, perhaps the single greatest difference between those who fail and those who succeed. Most people quit when results do not come quickly, when they face rejection, or when obstacles appear larger than expected. But those who persist, who refuse to stop despite fatigue, ridicule, or defeat, eventually discover that success belongs to the relentless. Persistence is not glamorous, but it is unstoppable, and history is full of examples where ordinary individuals triumphed simply because they would not quit. When we bring all of these elements together, definite purpose, decision-making mastery, faith, mastermind alliances, the ability to turn failure into stepping stones, self-discipline, auto-suggestion, imagination, organized planning, specialized knowledge, fear control, and persistence, we see the complete formula that separates the few who succeed from the many who fail. Most people never apply this blueprint because it requires effort, courage, and patience. But those who do apply it transform their lives in ways that seem miraculous to others. Hill's lifelong message was that success is not reserved for the chosen few. It is available to anyone willing to think differently, act decisively, discipline themselves, and refuse to give up. The tragedy is that most people are unwilling to pay the price, preferring comfort over challenge, excuses over responsibility, and fear over faith. And so they remain among the majority who fail. But for those rare individuals who decide to commit, who choose a definite purpose, surround themselves with the right influences, discipline their habits, and persist through failure, success becomes not only possible, but inevitable. This is the blueprint that Napoleon Hill uncovered, and it remains just as powerful today as when he first wrote it. It is a call to action, a challenge to rise above the ordinary, to master the mind, to break free from fear, and to step boldly toward greatness. For while most people fail, the few who dare to live by these principles create lives of impact, abundance, and lasting success.